All right, everyone. Welcome back here to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America. Unfortunately, Chris is not with us tonight, so you'll just have to stick with me tonight. I'm going to be hosting this particular episode by myself, but I don't think that that's going to be too much of a challenge because there's so much crazy happening in the world. It's almost as if there's always something we can talk about, whether it's what happened to the Epstein list or the insanity that the left continues to put out there. We are now seeing witness to masked protesters attacking ICE agents, and it's happening right there in a left-leaning controlled, or not even left-leaning, but a true leftist city of San Francisco. We are watching as this continues to crack, and we see these folks again who are masking themselves. These are agents of terror, in my personal opinion, because again, they're not there as protesters. They're there to create mischief. If you're going to protest, why hide your face in the first place unless you're there to create some type of mischief? Because I can promise you, in San Francisco, your point of view on illegal immigration is probably going to be well accepted. You're not in an area where you might get called out for saying that we shouldn't be deporting illegal aliens. You're not in an area where you might face particular problems for that particular stance. But here they are, hiding their face, doing whatever they can to try to pretend that they're just there to protest. They're not. And it brings us to a bigger question because, again, if you watch the way that several left-leaning leaders speak and the way how that they have attacked, it's not just politicians, it's people in Hollywood. It's all down the line, and the way how they talk about this crackdown on illegal immigration, how we're just snatching families out of the street, how this is a tyrant. This is fascism. You're hearing all this rhetoric. It's the same rhetoric that we heard for a long time just against Donald Trump. And you remember last year during the election, it prompted 2 assassination attempts. The left still, after saying that we need to dial down the rhetoric, that lasted what, 48 hours? They didn't dial down the rhetoric. They just put a pause on it for a moment, and then they ramped up the rhetoric once again. And now, instead of just targeting folks like Donald Trump, they're targeting the ICE agents. They're targeting anyone that they can, and they're creating more problems than anything else because this type of rhetoric is what's leading to these, again, my particular opinion, these terrorists to put these masks on and go attack ICE agents. ICE agents who are doing their job. It's crazy to sit back and watch what is happening and watch as we continue to try to figure out how to get this to stop. These are the same people, the same left-leaning liberal lunatics who said that the floods that happened in Texas were deserved because those were MAGA people. They were MAGA people, so they got what they deserve. Make America great people, Donald Trump supporters. So again, the flood comes in, wipes them out. That's fine. It's okay. All we did was wipe out people that were supporting that fascist, mean orange man. Quite frankly, we need to figure out how to stop that type of rhetoric. But again, it's not on our side. It's on theirs. The news media hypes it up. The news media continues to double down on these particular issues. They continue to ramp up every time you see another leftist, whether it's that egg-headed actor Mark Ruffalo who's getting all upset because, someone agrees with him, but he didn't agree with him as soon as he thought he should have. We're watching the lunatic left continue to spark upwards. We continue to watch them time and time again, how they come up with all this inflamed rhetoric And we're seeing the violence that is coming out of it. These aren't mostly peaceful protests, as the left likes to call. No, these are violent riots being done on behalf of their cause. And they don't want to call them out. They don't want to tell the truth about them because, again, the truth doesn't aid their narrative. They're more interested in their narrative than they are in actually the illegal immigrants that they claim that they want to try to protect. They want to stoke the flames. And it starts to make you ask questions. What exactly are they up to here? Well, if you study history and you go back and you can see different violent revolutions that happen in certain countries, they usually start with civil unrest like what we're seeing here. Is that their end game? Is their end game to rile folks up and spark the division to the point that we get so divided that we have these wars begin, that we see our nation fall from what it once was? Is that their end game? We're watching as we see a rise in socialism within the Democratic Party. It's not on the fringe anymore, people. The candidate, the Democrat nominee for the mayor of New York, is a devout socialist. It's not on the fringe anymore. He's being pushed by Bernie Sanders and AOC. They're not on the fringe anymore. It's their party. If you're a Democrat who doesn't agree with socialism, you probably need to be asking yourself, why am I still a Democrat? Because again, it's not fringe anymore within the party. That is the mainstream of the party now. Because trust me, that seat to become the mayor of New York is a big deal. You may live in a small town like I do and don't think that the mayor is as big of a deal, but mayor of New York's a big accomplishment. And now we've got a radicalized socialist lunatic who looks like he might be the next mayor of New York. So again, are we witnessing them do this, take us down this path because they're trying to spark a bloody revolution? Are they trying to spark something? I don't know. But I do know that they're not toning down any of the rhetoric. That assassination attempts against President Trump did not make them heed the call to dial it back a little bit. No, they're ramping up. And now, again, ICE agents are part of the Gestapo, is one of the things we're being told. So they're dehumanizing these federal agents, because let's make no mistake about it. ICE agents are federal agents. They're dehumanizing these agents. And by doing that, they're making folks feel like, okay, you know what? We can go and we can attack them. We can do whatever we want. We can attack however we feel like. But that's the problem that we're facing, because, again, how do you combat that? How do you combat that, especially as you see the rise of socialism amongst young people? There are so many young people out there that just have bought into this socialist diatribe. They've bought into the sell of socialism. That's why you see AOC, Bernie Sanders, this guy in New York. That's why you see them rise to the level that they have, because, again, it comes down to the fact that they don't understand how things actually work. All they hear is, I'm going to get free stuff. And that's the whole appeal. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you that. They never talk about how they're going to pay for that. Well, or when they do, they give you very, very vague things like, we're going to just tax the rich more. They don't want to talk about things that could potentially prove that their narrative is not, that their idea of government's not sustainable. Because again, if you just tax the rich more, the people that are creating jobs, own the corporations that we work for, you start taxing them more, guess what they're going to do? You're not going to get a raise. As a matter of fact, depending on where you work, how many people are employed, there's a good chance you might get laid off. You don't have a job. But if they can continue down the path with this rhetoric that they have, then maybe you'll feel like you're part of that victim class that they tie into so well. Because again, the victim class is the class that the Democrat Party has made an entire career out of exploiting. They want you to feel like you're not successful through no fault of your own, but through the fault of someone holding you down. Whether it's the big bad rich person, or whether it's the white people, or whatever they want to say. They want to hold you down and make you feel like a victim. If you're poor, then that's the mindset. They want you to feel like you're not poor because of anything you did. You're not poor because you made a bad decision or a bad choice somewhere. You're poor because you've been oppressed by an unfair system. And by convincing you of that, by trying to sell you on that, you have now decided that there's no hope to get out of it unless we change the system. So the inflamed rhetoric is there for a reason, people, because they understand that if they hit you with such inflammatory rhetoric, that you're going to have no choice but to fall in line with their way of thinking. I can promise you this: government is not the solution to our problems. We need less of it, not more of it. We need to figure out ways to just get away from some of these socialist ideals. But it's frightening because we're seeing it taking hold with younger people. Younger people who haven't necessarily lived life yet, haven't truly paid a bill yet, haven't truly understood what it's like to be an adult yet. They're falling for this rhetoric. Zoran Mandini it's frightening to see his rise. There are some out there who have called him out, of course, many Republicans, but, whoever thought we'd see the day that Senator John Fetterman was going to be the voice of reason within the Democrat Party. But this is the reality we live in, where he is saying that this Mandini winning New York's Democrat primary is Christmas in July for the GOP. He said, everything that I've read on him, I don't really agree with virtually any of it politically. That's just where I'm at as a Democrat. He's not even a Democrat, honestly. So he's out there telling you that this guy's not even a Democrat. He doesn't view this nominee there in New York City, and he thinks it's going to help the Republicans, and maybe it will. Maybe it will. Of course, I've got issues with you Republicans too. We'll talk about that here in the near future, but it's just one of those things that we have to talk about. Does it make you uncomfortable to talk about this? Does it make you uncomfortable to ask the questions about why they're going down this inflammatory rhetoric? Why the fact that they have not backed off? Matter of fact, feels like they've ramped it up in light of Trump's assassination attempts last year. Anytime there's a shooting or something that happens, let it be a right-leaning individual. Media's going to call for all the rhetoric to be cut down. A few years ago, I remember, and forgive me because I can't remember her name, but I remember Congresswoman being shot. She was a Democrat. And the rhetoric that came out, I think it was Sarah Palin that had a website targeting weak Democrat congressional districts, and she had pictures of them in crosshairs. Oh, that was a big outrage. Of course, she had that before the shooting happened, and it didn't influence the shooting. I think it was Giffords was the one that was shot, but it didn't matter as far as the shooting. It didn't influence it, but that was just too inflamed. Sarah Palin, of course, took those photos down. They changed. But then here we are, Democrats, they might put a 48-hour pause on it. Call it a ceasefire if you will. But they're more interested in winning elections and pushing this country down a path that we're not going to be able to survive. Socialism has worked nowhere, people. It doesn't work. It's a failed system. And the reason it's a failed system is what it's going to end up doing, it's not going to take care of you. It's going to take care of the fat cats in charge. They're going to get all that money. You're going to get enough just so that you feel like you've been pacified. But you're not going to be better off under the system. If you want to go to the grocery store and stand in long bread lines and not knowing if you're even going to be able to get said bread, be my guest. Go ahead and vote for that socialist Democrat that you're continuing to have. Fetterman tried to say that Mandini's not a Democrat. Fetterman, I might want to break news to you. You might not be a Democrat anymore, buddy. Because, as I said, he's not on the fringe anymore. The Bernie Sanders and the AOCs are in control of that party. That party is no longer the party that it was even 5 years ago. Some are saying, when are we going to see a socialist elected president of the United States? Will it happen in our lifetime? And it might. As frightening as that might sound, it might. Unless we can figure out a way to educate our young people and get them away from this thought process. Because again, it's extremely possible. You may think it's crazy. You may hear me say that no way United States of America would elect a socialist. I say maybe we have elected one or two already. Because maybe, if you go back and you look at some of the things that Barack Obama was pushing, might not be a pure socialist in the sense of Bernie Sanders, but he wasn't far from it. Wasn't far from it with his whole idea of redistribution of wealth. Joe Biden was an extension of him, so maybe we've done it twice. I think that it's fair to say that, yes, it's a distinct possibility. The only difference between Obama and Biden and somebody like Mandini or Bernie Sanders or AOC is they didn't fully admit to being a socialist the way that the others did. That's the reality of where we're at nowadays. Because the situation, one of the things about this inflamed rhetoric that we're seeing, and I think this is part where it's truly calculated, where they truly understand what they're doing. Young people hear that. And young people who haven't studied or done much research, it can stick in their craw, especially if they've got a professor somewhere that's telling them, yeah, Trump's a fascist. Y'all need to do something about it. They've seen and probably have romanticized the 1960s and the hippie movement. They want their own movement like that. But instead of the summer of love, they're going out with the summer of violence. They're going out and trying to figure out ways to spark this revolution. That's why they're okay putting on masks and going and attacking ICE agents. Look, agree with what they're doing, don't agree with what they're doing. It's still their job, and they're following the orders they were given. And I don't think you should be stepping up there and attacking them. And why are you attacking them? To protect folks that have entered this country illegally. Is it because you think that makes you have a bigger heart? I'm not sure that that's the case. I'm not sure that's how this works out. I think that we're dealing with very uncertain times, and it's scary. It's scary. What can you do? What could you come up with to try to stop this? You know, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? But there are things you could do. There are ways that you could jump in and try to prevent your child or other young people from falling for this socialist trap, falling into the inflamed rhetoric that's sparking this type of stuff. And that's have conversations with them. Now, I know what you're saying. I don't want to talk politics with my kids. Politics is dirty. You need to. You have to instill your values. They may not accept them. Heck, they may not accept them at first. They may never accept them. But if you try and you instill with them a sense of values that when they go to college and they're challenged, you're not someone who, or they're not someone who has their foundations rocked the first time a college professor starts to question them. They have the foundation. They can answer back. That college professor is not going to be able to sway them down a certain path because you instilled those values in them. You need to talk with them. Look, I believe in freedom of speech, 100%. But at the same time, when we're looking at the rhetoric that's leading to this type of chaos, is that really free speech, or is that folks that are trying to promote chaos? When you have these actors that are showing up and going to different rallies and are throwing out all this incendiary comments about Trump being a fascist or being this, they're not smart enough to understand that they are encouraging, or maybe they are, and maybe that's their goal, but they're encouraging those who would want to do harm to act. If you believe that your country is being left in charge by a radical dictator, and you're being told that something has to be done, at some point you might step up and try to do something. Instead of trying to win it back at the ballot box, that might be your next step. And we've already seen 2 instances where that was exactly what was attempted. Donald Trump got shot in the ear at one of them. So he was hit in that first one. Again, is this truly necessary to go down all this inflamed rhetoric path? I don't think that it is. I'm not saying if you disagree with a politician, you shouldn't call them out, because I 100% believe that you should call them out. They work for you, not that you don't work for them. You should call them out. And I say that to a left-leaning individual as well as conservatives, because I think that that's your right as an American. But you don't have to throw out Nazi or fascist or say they're a part of the Gestapo every time there is a policy or a decision that you disagree with. But that's where we're at, because this is the rhetoric that we continue to see. And we ask ourselves, why do we see violence happen? Why do we see things like this happen? When are we losing? What are we doing to the point where we're losing our humanity, to the point that we're willing to just go down these paths, to where when children are killed in a flash flood, that there are those on the left celebrating because MAGA got what it deserved? That's sickening, people. I mean, and I do want to hit on that for just a second, because again, there are people out there celebrating what happened in Texas simply because Texas was a red state. Texas went for Trump. So therefore, in their mind, it's justified that children died. It's justified that that happened there. It's sad. At some point, we need to stop with some of the nonsense and go back to being human a little bit. We're so pulled back, and a lot of it has to do with social media that you can pull up right here on your phone. The fact that you can pull it up on your phone and just access it right away. You're probably watching us on a social media page, or you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you watch us. But if you're watching us on social media, thank you for watching. But also, you understand how easy it is to access social media. If you go and you look at the comments and you see some of the things, people, when they don't feel like they have to face the person, they're more willing to say whatever they want. Look, I've always known this, hosting talk radio shows and being a part of the Right Side radio program, as well as working with Chris and doing this particular show. I've always known that people, when they don't feel like they have a face, they feel like they can be more ruthless in the way that they talk to you. They're not looking you eye to eye, so they know they don't have to face that punch in the nose if they say the wrong thing. So they 100% have no concerns about saying the wrong thing. They're not worried about it. They just go on social media and they'll call you whatever name they want to. They'll say whatever vile and disgusting thing they feel like comes in their head. Look, I've been working here at the Laurel Leader Call as a reporter, and I've seen some of the comments that certain stories get and the way that people dehumanize us. It's part of what social media does. It dehumanizes us. Because again, real easy for me to look at you and go, you know what? I'm gonna say something vile and disgusting. I'm gonna tell you to go shoot yourself. I'm gonna do that because I'm not facing you. I don't feel like there's gonna be any consequence to me making a statement like that. I've talked about it before. You know, one of the things that I've done working with Chris is I've had to field some of his social media inbox questions, and I can tell you, the Luna you left has no qualms about calling you the most disgusting things they can, wishing the most ill will that they can wish on you. One of these days, I'm going to have to talk Chris into reading some of those on the air, but I don't know that he will, but it's pretty eye-opening. Just because I disagree with you, that doesn't mean that now you have to completely dehumanize me and wish me to die because my opinion is different than yours. Again, it's crazy. How do we come back from that? How do we get back our humanity? And again, as I said before, it starts in the home. It starts in the home. If you're a parent, you have to be instilling those values. If you're a parent, you have to let your children know that there are consequences for their actions, and there could be consequences for their words. You can't just go up to anybody and everybody and say whatever you feel like. It doesn't matter if it's on a phone or where it's at. You need to understand those same consequences. Growing up, we didn't have social media. So I didn't have to deal with, my parents didn't have to deal with getting me ready for that. I understood that if I walked up to the wrong person and said the wrong thing to him, there's a good chance he was going to take a swing at me. And if he was the right size, he probably was going to beat my tail. So it was one of those things that we understood, we accepted. Kids nowadays with social media, they don't have that same sense. They don't feel that same idea that there might be a consequence for their words. And that's a problem. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll switch gears when we come back. I think it's time to take a quick break here. I'm Jack Fairchilds, filling in for Chris McDaniel today here on Chris McDaniel's America. We'll be right back.
Resort.
Folks, it's not that hard to just think about things before you type them. It's not that hard to pause a little bit. Look, I'm a huge sports fan. I have followed my teams for as long as I can remember. It's one of the things I used to share with my dad. I remember after every Super Bowl, I would call him and we'd have a talk about, it didn't matter if neither of our teams were in the game. We still were going to have that conversation after every Super Bowl game. So I know a little bit about trying to treat people like they're fake, because I have witnessed, sitting in the stands, some of the horrible things that people will say to a athlete in sports. And again, if you're talking about $1 million professional athletes, that's one thing. I've seen this said on little league fields. I'm not saying that you should dehumanize professional athletes either, because I think people cross lines there all the time. Matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, there was a game being played. It was in Chicago. There was a player, I think he played for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I can't remember. They were playing the White Sox, whose fans are notoriously rough. If you studied too many headlines, they're not known for having the best fans. But one of the fans started to heckle this player about the death of his mom. His mom was killed in a car accident a few years ago. He thought it was okay to heckle him about that. Again, dehumanizing folks, showing a lack of humanity. Everyone was outraged by that, and the fan was banned from the stadium. I think he was banned from all major league stadiums, but at the same time, we were quick to condemn that. But when we hear folks go to that sort of extremes to a political figure and a party we don't agree with, we're okay with it. Oh yeah, he's terrible, so you should say that to him. Why don't we have that same sense of outrage that we did for the athlete? Why aren't we feeling a sense to protect one another from ridicule just because we come out with a political opinion you don't agree with? It's a good question, and it's something that at some point in time we have to try to figure out a way to go back and reclaim that humanity that we have lost. Because again, that's where we're at the moment. Our humanity is taking a beating, people. I just want to, look, I have no problem discussing my political views with people. But I am less likely to bring it up to somebody I don't know, because I don't know how they're going to react. I know I'm going to be level-headed. I know I'm not going to attack you. I mean, heck, I used to take callers back in the day when I was on terrestrial radio. Not all of them agreed with me. And it was funny because you'd have some of those raving lunatic liberals that didn't understand that I had control of the phone call, their volume and everything. And they'd start screaming. And that's one thing you're not going to scream at me. So I'd pod down their volume. I wouldn't hang up on them. I'd pod down their volume and I'd finish my point, and I'd come back and they'd still be mid-scream. They never even realized I had podded down their volume because they just didn't care. They thought they were getting theirs in. Again, I'll have a conversation with anyone about any topic. I'm pretty confident in my ability to sell my position and to debate my position. But what I will not do is engage in a screaming match with you. I will not engage in a match where you think you're just going to talk over me. And if you have to do that, if you go down that path, guess what that means? Your position's not that strong, because you have to go to a cheap parlor trick of shouts, insults, things that you're not able to do, or things that prove that you're not able to prove your point. You go to the lowest common denominator because it's the best you got. So again, if you want to have a substantive conversation without shouting, I'm here for that. And if at the end of that conversation we want to shake hands and agree to disagree, that's fine too. I'm okay with that. You don't have to agree with me. You're entitled to be wrong. But again, the conversation needs to come back instead of this inflamed rhetoric. The left is dialing it up and continues to dial it up. And it's leading to attacks on these ICE agents because, again, these ICE agents are being dehumanized. They're just being painted as members of trying to be a part of the Gestapo. They're Trump's foot soldiers. They've already dehumanized Trump. They've already dehumanized him to the point that there have been 2 attempts on his life. Again, I don't know what to tell you for sure. I just know that we can do better. And I believe that in the bottom of my heart, that we can do better. Liberals, if you ever want your message to be got, and you don't want us to believe that you're trying to invoke chaos so that you can overthrow the nation. Again, y'all are the same people who said for a long time that y'all just want to protect democracy. Doesn't really look like you do, though. Because when the voters disagree with you, then there's a problem with the system. When the voters agree with you, then the system worked. At some point, you have to figure out a better way to sell your message. As far as the socialist concern in this country, it's a concern that we could, but if that ever happens, I don't see this United States remaining united. I just don't. I think there's certain state governments that would try to branch off again because they're not going to want to be a part of that government. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I do know this, that if the United States became a socialist government, we wouldn't be the greatest nation in the world, and we would fall relatively fast, too. Speaking of falling, let's switch gears here, because one of the things that's been all over the news, one of the things that everybody's been talking about the last several days is these claims on the Epstein list. We're now being told it doesn't exist. We're being told that Jeffrey Epstein did, in fact, commit suicide. We're being sold a bill of goods after being told for a long time that there was a client list. Matter of fact, Pamela Bondi, she even came out just about a month or so ago, a few months back, talking about the Epstein list and that the names surprised some of us. So we were told that there was a list by the people who are now telling us there's no list. What did they convict Maxwell on if there's no list? It's fascinating because, again, we just spent all that time talking about some of the rhetoric, but there's a reason why some people are so predispositioned to not trust. And that's because of things like this. This feels like a cover-up. It feels like a cover-up. And again, one of the things we were excited for and hopeful for with the election of Donald Trump was that the days of these type of cover-ups would be over, that he was going to be more transparent. His administration was going to be more transparent with us. And right now, because of the whole way they've handled the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, has been terrible, because now even some of his biggest supporters are questioning, is his administration covering this up? Again, this is coming on the wake of Elon Musk just a few weeks back claiming that Donald Trump was on said Epstein list. Now, I'm not saying that I believe Donald Trump was on it, but this plays in to the concern that there's something being covered up. We know there were some powerful names that were connected to Jeffrey Epstein. We know that there are flight logs that show people that took trips out to Epstein's island. We know these things. These are not speculative ideas. These are things that we know. We know they got a conviction on Ghislaine Maxwell over this type of information. And now we're being told that there is no Epstein list. Okay, fine. If you're taking Epstein list, client list in a literal term and saying that there was never a true client list, maybe that's okay. But that's not what they're doing. They're trying to say that there was never any list of potential clients. That's simply hard to believe, especially after, again, Pam Bondi told us a few months ago there was one. This backtrack and trying to pretend that it's not there is a bad look for the Trump administration. Just being honest with you guys, it's a bad look. Now, I know Trump hasn't commented on himself, so I'm not making this an attack on him, but his administration has fumbled the way that they're getting that information out. Let's say, for argument's sake, there is no smoking gun list like we were all expecting, or let's say that it isn't as impactful as we believed it to be. You've got to come up with better messaging to convey that to people than what they're doing. Because right now, they're making people believe that they are covering something else up. They are definitely making us believe that there's something they're hiding from us. I don't know what's on that list. I don't know if the list ever truly existed. But I do know for a fact that I don't believe this official story we're being told that there's no evidence, because we know there was, or else they would have never gotten the conviction on Maxwell in the first place. Whether Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or he got suicided, that's a question I accepted a long time ago. We're never going to get the true answer on that. That part of the equation. But when you're trying to tell us that, no, he did commit suicide, and I just, again, not sure that you're handling, dispersing this information in a correct manner. You're opening the door for questions. You're opening the door for many of us to ask, okay, what are they not telling us? What are they hiding? Who are they trying to protect? It's frightening when you think about it, because when your government is more interested in protecting the extremely powerful, and again, the names that we've been told is non-party affiliated, because they're probably going to be names on both sides of the aisle pop up on any client list. Let's be clear about that. But we do know, we've been told Bill Clinton, we've been told other powerful left-leaning individuals. So again, that makes you understand why we think that there's a cover-up happening. It's one of those things that, again, let's say they're telling us the truth. Messaging should have been perfect. You shouldn't have gone to the press the way that they did and said there's no Epstein list, with very little explanation, with very little news out there to try to explain to us. They created the doubt. They created the reason we're questioning it. It's the truth. You have to come out with a way in which you are explaining it to where we can when you just say it's not there, trust you. That's not going to work. We've been lied to too much, people. We have seen administrations come and go, and we have counted lies that they've told time and time again. And here you guys are, the one that we expected to be the transparent administration, And you're telling us, no, that's not true. There was never a list. None of us are buying that. None of us are buying that because, again, this is a problem. This is an issue that we continue to watch time and time again. We know that government protects its own. We know that there are things put in place to protect the ruling class that will have us questioning our government in the first place. I just don't know what the true facts are. I just know I don't believe for a second that there wasn't an Epstein list of some kind, whether it was a true client list or what it was. I just don't know. Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Republican, he believes that the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's list was destroyed under the Biden administration. He believes that this was that Biden and them made sure that this didn't exist. Here's his quote. He says, "I think the files existed at one time. I think they were destroyed in the previous administration. I think if they'd ever had anything on Trump, it would have been laid out day one under the Biden administration. I think there's some very prominent people. There's Hollywood people, but I think there's world leaders too." He added, "Would it have caused an economic disruption around the globe? Maybe, but I don't really care. I don't want to bury them." And again, then he went further and he asked, "What's Miss Maxwell doing in jail?" Same thing I did. He said, "What did she do? Where is that? Who did she provide whatever she did? Why is she in jail?" That's got to be a question that should be asked at some point. But again, under the previous administration, we're not going to get that. Dead men tell no tales, and he's dead. Talking about Epstein. Here's the thing. If the Biden administration did, in fact, destroy the list, that should be what we're being told, not there's no list. Again, it goes back to the messaging that I was talking about. The way that they're telling us this is leading us down that path to where we don't trust them. Now, would we 100% buy it if they told us the Biden administration destroyed it? Maybe, maybe not. I think half the population would. The other half would believe that Trump's covering his own tracks. But it would still be better than having all of us scratching our head going, "You're lying to us. This is not factual." And if there was a list, probably a good chance that they know that there's missing evidence. They could say that. The host of whatever show that Burchett was on asked why Attorney General Pam Bondi did not state that the list was destroyed. And he says she doesn't have any proof of it. "I'm just telling you what I think. I've been around this town enough. I think she got over her skis in all this stuff." Burchett said he believed that the Justice Department officials got a little excited earlier this year when they promised to reveal the full details. Others have floated that same theory, but again, we don't know. Is it believable that the Biden administration had the evidence destroyed? Absolutely. It's believable. Do I understand why you wouldn't say it if you don't have proof that they did? Yes. I understand why you would not come out and say that the Biden administration destroyed the list if you can't prove that. But your messaging needs to be better than what we've gotten. Because you've opened the door for us to question this. You've opened the door for me to sit down and go, "What are you hiding?" Look, we want to be on your... Trump supporters want to be on your side. We want to believe in this administration. We want to believe that it's going to do what it says it's going to do, that it's going to be the most transparent administration that we can. But at the same time, we need to temper ourselves, I guess, a little bit. Because, again, I'll be honest with you. I said months ago that we're never going to see the full list. I thought we might get a name here or there, but it wasn't going to be as impactful as what it could have been. I said it just a few minutes ago. I don't think we're ever going to 100% be able to prove whether Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or was killed. Those are the type of things I'd already accepted because I understand how Washington works. When we come out promising answers, telling us you've got a list, you're going to release it, and then you come back months later and tell us no list exists, it's not a good look. We need information. You need to figure out a way to give us that. Even if you just want to come out and say, look, we don't have the evidence, but our belief is there was a list and the previous administration destroyed it. That would go a long way, at least with your supporters. Now, the other side of the equation is still going to be mad, as I already said, but go a long way with your own supporters. You've already fumbled this one. Speaking of fumbling, there's split between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Musk hates the big, beautiful bill. I'm not a big fan of it either. And hopefully, whenever I put together the next episode of the Right Side Radio program, probably on Saturday, I'll get into some of the big, beautiful bill stuff. But Elon Musk absolutely hates that bill. We saw this lead to a breakup between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, their friendship over. Musk throwing out just fireballs at Trump, trying to attack him. Trump returning, although he never went as far as to say that Musk was on the Epstein list. But we've seen this feud between the two. And I think some of Musk's frustration truly began when Congress refused to codify his Doge cuts, when they refused to actually take his recommendations and actually make these cuts. I think you started to see the beginning of Elon Musk frustration, because Elon Musk used to just being in charge and saying, this is how we're going to do it. He'd never stepped into the political arena and found out just how little those politicians care about you. They care about that lobbyist more than they do you. So Musk and his recommendations didn't really go anywhere. So now, before the passage of the big, beautiful bill, he was trying to make threats out there to Republicans who voted for this bill, saying that he would make sure that you were primaried. He's since moved on, and now he's working on forming his own major political party. I think he's calling it the American Party, if my memory serves me right. And his party, his party, again, third parties in this country have never gotten off the ground, whether it's the Libertarian Party or other examples. The Libertarian Party is probably the most successful third party, but how many big-time Libertarian politicians have been elected? Again, I'm not insulting you if you're a part of the Libertarian Party. I have a lot of respect for you guys. Matter of fact, I've gone in to some of your meetings and hung out, and I agree with a lot of what you guys say. But for whatever reason, and I think part of that comes from your higher-ups just can't get out of their own way sometimes, you've never been able to gain traction. I do also think that one of the things that holds you back is you're dealing with major political parties that have unlimited resources that any third party just doesn't have. What about a party backed by the world's richest man? What about a party getting off the ground with Elon Musk funding? Could that wreak havoc for Republicans and Democrats? Could that be the method in which we finally see an end to the two-party system in our country? I don't know, but it's far more interesting than me trying to start the Constitution Party or this, and the Constitution Party does exist. I'm just saying me trying to start one off the ground with my non-existent resources. You've got somebody like an Elon Musk. If he can come in, he can dump money in these candidates' coffers. He can raise their portfolios. He could potentially wreak havoc on the American political system. And I'm okay with it because, again, I think that the problems that we have nowadays with the Republicans and the Democrats being the two parties, you've heard me talk about it before, where there's not much of a difference between them. They flip on the cameras, they pretend to fight in front of us, and then they go behind closed doors and have drinks together and probably laugh about the fake fight that they put on. It's almost like I envision it sort of like watching WWF and going and watching wrestling where the bad guy and the good guy are sitting there spitting out verbal exchange, get into a fight, and then as soon as the lights go off, they're backstage, they're cutting it up, sharing pictures of their children and their best friends. It's very similar in this fight. They pretend they're mortal enemies, but they're not. Elon Musk could potentially create an effective third party. It probably, look, I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably not going to happen. What'll probably happen is Elon will get brought back in the fold before it ever truly gets going. But it's compelling, it's interesting, because again, this would give this new party something that most parties, when they're trying to get themselves off the ground, don't have. And that's financial backers with deep, almost endless pockets. That could be interesting. Would it be good for the country to have a third party, a viable third party? Probably. Could it split the party? Like, let's say that Elon Musk party leans in on conservatism. Well, you still have old school Republicans who believe that's the party of conservatism. Could it split the vote and drive us further to the left? Absolutely. But it could have the other side if his party leans more into some of his more liberal ideals and they push that. Could it drive more towards Republican? It could. But it's a problem our country's never had to face because we've always been this two-party system. And I don't think we were ever intended to just have two ruling parties. But unfortunately, that's what we've had for years. And I'm hopeful. I would love to see somebody give us a viable third option because there's so many people out there that are so frustrated with both the Republicans and the Democrats that I think that they would love and welcome an alternative. We'll see. I'm skeptical because I'm always skeptical anytime I see a third party trying to get off the ground. But this one might have more legs because of the financial backing of Elon Musk. Guys, thank y'all so much for watching Chris McDaniel's America today. Chris should be back with us next week. We hope to have him back with us next week. But I'm Jack Fairchilds. This has been Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home for the anti-establishment movement.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.